It's Saturday night. I'm wearing a floral dress. My hair is done up. My lips stained a crimson red, bound to make him eat his heart out across the dinner table. A car approaches my house, and a handsome 22-year-old dude steps out and opens the passenger side door for me. I smile. He smiles. I get in the car, and soon we are on our way for some noodles. So we get our food. We make first date talk. Yada, yada, yada. I do this all the time. Except this dude is cooler than most, and the conversation is pretty free-flowing and involved. Seems to me like we're really vibing. After the check is paid and the leftovers are all loaded up in the carry-out box, he takes my hand on our way back to the car, and casually asks if I'd like to continue the night back at his place. I agree, and once again we are on our way. Now, I must express to you just how normal and cool this dude seemed thus far. Pretty great. I was kind of stoked about how well we were getting along and schoolgirl giddy at the way he held my hand. This, of course, was before I knew about the shooting stars. We arrived at his place and go out on the balcony for a smoke, and suddenly, it's like someone flipped some kind of maniac switch. This guy was pointing all over the sky, screaming about these shooting stars that were in the sky. I'm just like,
dude, you're tripping.
So he proceeds to grab my shoulders and spin me around forcefully so I'm facing the trees parallel to the balcony, all the while pointing and screaming,
There, do you see it?
I'm about 3 jerks away from shaken baby syndrome, so I just go,
Yeah, I see it. I see the motherfucking shooting stars.
And he let me go, and heaves the cartoonish sigh of relief and says, more to himself than to me,
Thank God you saw it. I can't believe you almost missed it.
So that was weird as fuck, but I tried my best to brush it off as we go back inside. And I mean, things are okay, I guess. I'm almost completely turned off by our weird imaginary astronomy lesson, but I'm doing my best to remain collected. That's a little tough, as this guy's eyes were becoming crazier by the second. I wanted out so bad, but in a stroke of genius, I had agreed to him picking me up for the date, so he's my ride home. Okay, so what, Indigo? Just make an excuse about plans in the morning and ask politely for him to drive you home? I go over and over in my head, trying to find the wording that sounds the least like, you seriously creep me out, so I think it's time to go now. At this point, he had disappeared for a bit, and when he returned, I was all ready to flash a smile and make my out. I opened my mouth and began my well-thought-out speech when I noticed the handle of the vodka in his hand. Oh, fuck. Clearly, he had not decided to wait for me to begin drinking, and was quite inebriated. Plan A was a no-go. I decided to wait out the storm by limiting his alcohol consumption as much as possible, and abstaining entirely myself. Finally, the rays of dawn began to break through the blinds. Well, as much sunlight that can break through how tightly he had closed them to avoid seeing the shadow figures. And I was so ready to go home and hold my rabbit. Seemed like this ordeal was just about over, right? Bro, you ain't even heard the worst of it. As we drive to my house, he says,
Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I know I'm not.
And I debate even responding, but I decide to ask,
Who is everyone?
Then, I shit you not, the following comes out of his mouth.
I can hear them in the car most of the time. They say the same stuff around here that they said in San Francisco. Always talking, like that one time when I was locked in the car for a week and I was raped in the ass with a sword. And then the sword was shoved down my throat too.
I'm flabbergasted. I am frightened. I am feeling very unsafe. I managed to choke out something along the lines of,
Dude, maybe you should see a doctor about that stuff.
Clearly he has heard this before, as he had a whole spiel prepped and at the ready to fire his bullets of insanity at me.
You see, that's what I mean. I've already been to the hospital 2 times and had doctors diagnose this and that and prescribe everything under the sun, but I knew I was just an observer of truth, and that's what people will never understand. And my mom was there, and she was crying, and I went over to comfort her and reassure her that I would keep her safe from the things that they say.
Then he smiles at me. We have arrived at my house. Oh my God, I'm safe at home. I'll be okay. I just have to open this door and make it out alive.
Well, you have a nice day.
and then I very calmly exit the car and walk into my house. I kind of look around in shock, sort of astounded that I made it out of that situation with all of my skin. I walk over and sit on the couch and just kind of stare straight ahead until my roommate comes downstairs and asks me what's up. The dam of all dams break, and I nearly flood my house with tears and break all of the windows with my shrill, hysterical scream explanation of the last 12 hours. She consoles me as well as scolds me for not calling her when shit got weird initially. Then she made me bacon, and I felt much more centered. Hi, I've been reading these stories for a while. I have very little experience posting. Hopefully this is in the right place. A couple of years ago, my friend Kate had asked me to go with her to a party. This party was being thrown by her friend, Susan. Kate had gone to Catholic school with her in elementary and middle school, but during high school, Kate ended up going to public school, where she met me, while Susan went to a Catholic high school. The two had grown somewhat apart and hung out with different people, which is why Kate invited me along. It was Susan's birthday, and apparently Susan's parents had decided to rent out a cabin for her. They did this for her the previous year, and unbeknownst to them, she had decided to throw a party. The party had been a hit, so she was planning on doing it again. Kate and I drove to the cabin together. The cabin was pretty isolated. Aside from the woods behind it, there wasn't anything around. We couldn't even see other cabins, but I imagined they would probably be empty because it was wintertime. I was a little apprehensive because I wasn't going to know anyone at the party, but I figured after a few drinks that wouldn't really bother me anymore. Also, if you watch scary movies, you know that having a party in a cabin in the woods is a horror movie cliche. I was very aware of that. Kate and I had even been joking about how attending this party sounded like a prelude to a horror film. As if it wasn't enough, this was a Catholic schoolgirl party. We arrived at the cabin and it is pitch black outside. We needed to use our phones just to find our way. We go inside. Everything seems fine. Birthday girl is having a fun time. There's a good amount of people. The odd thing is that there seems to be a strange sort of divide at this party. Kate and I were completely unaware of what was happening. I did happen to notice this classy guy who had the name of a city we lived in tattooed in a messy scrawl across his neck. Kate and I had been silently laughing about it, but we were also a little worried because we wondered if that meant he was in a gang or something. Anyways, I don't remember why, but the main group of the party wanted these people to leave. I think it had to do with them drinking a lot despite not having brought any alcohol of their own. So in order to get these people to go, the main group said that a ranger, or whoever, was coming to stop by, and there were only supposed to be like 2 cars by the cabin and a handful of people. Rumor was that one of the guys in the group was on probation and couldn't afford to get in trouble. They left. The plan was a success. Or so we thought. Just as the group leaves, there was about 4 or 5 guys and 1 girl. The girl comes back in and says,
I just want to tell the birthday girl happy birthday.
In a really loud voice, drawing everyone's attention. Everyone was staring at her in confusion. Why was she announcing this? When not even 2 seconds later, we hear a window in one of the back of the rooms being busted open. This continues on and more windows are being broken. People are shouting and screaming. I'm just sitting there in confusion. Kate and I had been at this party for all of 15 minutes before all hell broke loose, and the girl who had invited the group of hoodlums is now saying that she knows at least one of them has a gun. Great. I don't know if my mind wasn't processing all of this correctly or what, but I'm just sitting there thinking, well, this is happening. The majority of us remained in the cabin. A couple of people went outside to see if the group was still there, and after a little bit of time had passed, people began to leave. There was still some fear that those guys might be out there waiting, but a lot of people just wanted to get the fuck out. I remember 3 girls who had been planning on staying the night had gathered all of their stuff up, their arms were full, and began heading out the door. As soon as all 3 walk out, we hear screaming coming from the woods, and all 3 girls immediately turn around and walk back in. In retrospect, it was kind of funny. One of the girls proceeds to start crying. Luckily, the scream had only been that of a new girl arriving at the party. She had seen her friend outside and had screamed in excitement. Kate and I had stayed in the cabin for a couple of hours. We really didn't want to leave Susan alone, and the majority of the people had left at this point. Aside from us, there was only a couple of other people left in the cabin. Thankfully, those people were staying the night, so Kate and I were able to leave around 2 a.m. We had all debated calling the cops, but considered the underage drinking going on, no one really wanted to. Plus, Susan was worried about her parents finding out about the party and had decided she was just going to lie about how the window had been broken. Thankfully, the group of people, potential gangsters, did not return. While that night had been scary, all I can really focus on was the fact that this took place at a cabin in the middle of the woods at a party thrown by Catholic schoolgirls. Of course, that would be the one and only party I've been to have scary shit like this happen. Beware cliches. I opened my mouth and began, my thought out and was already quite inebriated. One of the girls proceeds